got about 2,000 students who are walking today, and it's terrific because it really shows the transformational power of this experience for our students.
This was my first trip to Cuba, and it was an eye-opener because a lot of the myths and impressions I had really got blown away.
They're allowed to be who they are, very much in their bodies, while also meeting the expectations of dance as an art form.
Hello and welcome to University Beat. I'm Denise White. 2 months ago, they were USF students. Now they are alumni. Here are some sights and sounds from this spring's graduation.
I loved it. I feel free. I like him. I'm excited for the next stage to come.
It hasn't hit me yet. I guess it'll hit me once I walk in the door. Kind of excited, really nervous. Don't want to fall.
I'm excited about graduation. I'm majoring in health sciences. Going to grad school, and I'm taking a year off going to grad school. So I'm very excited. I got my associate's degree, got my bachelor's now, off to my master's.
4 years of final exams and going to classes and stressing the heck out is over. Well, not really over, but I mean, it's coming to an end. I'm excited. I love USF. I love being a Bull, but I'm really happy to say goodbye to my undergrad.
For the thousands of graduates, there was no doubt a mixed sense of accomplishment and relief. For their friends and families, pride, and maybe in a few cases, surprise. For the people staging the 6 separate ceremonies, an incredible amount of work. Mark Schreiner takes us behind the scenes.
The USF Sun Dome is empty and quiet right now, but in a few minutes it will be full of hundreds of graduates and thousands of their happy friends and family members.
The students are so proud. They've earned this degree. They've worked hard and they've waited for this degree. And to walk across the stage for families and friends and partners and spouses is just fabulous.
But a lot of work goes into putting this special moment together.
So number 4 will be Nickerson.
At the beginning of each semester, we start planning. The schedule goes out, communication to different departments, to students, planning the logistics, the parking, programs, honorees, speakers.
In the final frenzied moments before things get underway, students part from their families outside and gather in a room aptly named the Corral. Photos are taken. They make sure the announcer can read their name right, and they make sure they're presentable. Then it's on to the floor. Meantime, USF faculty and administration have a moment to catch up before they get their literal marching orders.
Some of the cards have special instructions. We'll speak to you about the special instructions.
And finally, it's time for the main event.
Faculty representatives of the university. And now, please give a warm welcome to the president of the university system, Dr. Judy Genshaft.
The ceremonies, which normally run about 90 minutes, feature all the pomp and circumstance you'd expect, with speeches, as well as an honorary degree award presentation. At the Friday afternoon ceremony, Dr. Ernest Boger, USF's first African-American graduate, received the President's Fellow Medallion.
Look around you. USF has always been and always will be about vision, as is evidenced in physical achievements, but also in terms of moral compass from day one.
Then it's the moment everyone's waiting for, the awarding of the degrees. U.S. Marine Mark Wolfson was the first student to march, and he did it in front of his very proud father.
It's a very moving feeling for 2 reasons. One, because he's my son, and because of what he's been through to get here, and because he's graduating from the University of South Florida, where I've been for 31 years, and to have the tradition continue through my own son is especially gratifying.
And what have you been through to get to this point?
I guess quite a bit, not too much, but enough. From school to, deployments overseas, 10-year process, pretty much.
Celebrations are the order of the day, both from students and their families. The USF College of Arts and Sciences is so large, the class marched in 2 separate ceremonies, and Dean Eric Eisenberg shook every graduate's hand.
Well, my hand hurts a little bit, but we've got about 2,000 students who are walking today, and it's terrific because it really shows the transformational power of this experience for our students. So many of our students and their families have never been to a graduation before, and I can see in their faces and their eyes what it means to them to be here.
This spring, USF had 6 ceremonies on the Tampa campus, 2 for USF St. Petersburg, and 1 more for USF Sarasota Manatee.
It's really important for the university to have each of the students have their name read as they walk across the stage. They've spent so much time at the university. This is their moment to shine, their moment to celebrate with their families. And that's why we keep adding more ceremonies in Tampa and St. Pete. We want to make sure that they are recognized for their accomplishments.
Over 5,000 students will march in the 9 ceremonies across the USF system, and President Genshev will pose for photos with every single one.
This is the best part. This is what we're all about. And having the students graduate, they walk across the stage, they're so excited, and we're so pleased and proud of them that I really enjoy all of them, every minute of it.
And once the last graduate's name is called, President Genshev gives them a final command.
It's the best part of my job. The day of the ceremony, watching the students walk across the stage, and when they turn their tassel, it's very gratifying to be part of that, be part of their excitement, their celebration.
Since so many graduates decorate their caps so ornately, that celebration doesn't include a cap toss, most of the time. And with the singing of the school alma mater, it's the end of another ceremony, and the celebration can begin. For University Beat, I'm Mark Schreiner.
On one hand, you have a Bay Area city where officials want a redeveloped downtown. On the other hand, you have young people who need some real-world experience. That combination seems to be working well, both for the city of Oldsmar and some USF design students.
The city of Oldsmar is situated at the top of Hillsborough Bay, between the cities of Tampa and St. Petersburg. The area of Oldsmar that we're looking at is just south of Tampa Road. It is what is the historic area, or part of the historic street grid and the community redevelopment in the city of Oldsmar. The areas now are a bit underdeveloped. There's a lot of vacant land or businesses that are facilities sitting empty and underutilized, and the project itself is looking to get those vacancies built up and to create much more of a walkable environment for the city of Oldsmar and the residents who live there. The Florida Center for Community Design and Research is the research arm for the School of Architecture and Community Design at USF. The city approached me and we agreed to meet, and we went to the city of Oldsmar. We had a meeting, we had a tour, we went around all of Oldsmar, so not just even what's proposed as the downtown area, but just be able to really get a breadth of the whole city to really understand it. After that, we came back and came up with an idea for the scope of work that we would undertake, and then we worked through ideas back and forth with the city in order to really get to the big idea of what the city is hoping to get out of the project. There are 11 students who were in the studio that focused on the City of Oldsmar project. Our presentation to the City of Oldsmar happened before their City Council and their CRA board meeting. And the presentation went really well. We were hoping that the city would be enthusiastic about what the students produced, and they were. The mayor had great comments for the students and was telling them that they should be proud of the work they produced and know that their handprints will be on the future of Oldsmar because of the work that they put into the project. Our next step with the City of Oldsmar will be to provide all of the documentation for the students' work, their research, their ideas, the overall master plan that they've created, as well as all of the models that they've built to be able to show an example of what Oldsmar could look like. And we'll be putting that together with some ideas for phasing to show how implementation could take place over a series of a few decades. Part of the overall master plan for the community redevelopment area and the State Street vision have 3 different components. So one is the State Street area, which really looks at the development of a downtown in and around the City Hall area. The second is Park Boulevard, which takes you from State Street all the way to the waterfront. It's really that connection from that future downtown to the recreational and vista of the waterfront. And then the third is St. Petersburg Drive, which is the area that connects State Street to the Oldsmar Library. And so this is definitely a cultural asset in Oldsmar, and their new library is a big draw. So being able to tie together the areas between City Hall and the library and the waterfront are what we look to do. The students actually got not only the experience of doing research and putting it together in a project, looking at the relationship between architecture and urban design, but they also got some real-world experience in being able to work with a city, being able to present before a city council and the mayor, being able to talk with citizens and present their work, and being able to understand how the process takes place for actually bringing projects to fruition.
I think the value of working on a project like this for a graduate student is it puts you in an environment where you're working not only with a team, but also with a kind of realistic client that is going to have demands from you that you might not expect from your architectural education. And so I think it challenges you in new ways and forces you to think about architecture in new terms that I think are more adapted to the real world.
The overall reaction from city officials when we presented was very positive. They were very excited for the work we were doing and the new ideas that we were able to present to them.
I'm very proud of what we accomplished. I think we presented something really positive for the city that I think the city needs to move forward and become a place that can, become a well-adapted city to the 21st century.
USF Sarasota Manatee is easing a requirement for entry into its Communication Sciences and Disorders program. The program, known as CSD, trains speech pathologists and audiologists. In the past, only upperclassmen were admitted, but starting this summer, freshmen and sophomores will be allowed to register. The move is designed to meet a growing need for speech pathologists and audiologists. Both fields are predicted to grow by more than 20% between now and 2020. What do Florida and Cuba have in common when it comes to tourism? Quite a bit. And it's not all about money. When USF leaders traveled to Cuba earlier this spring, the talk was about environment and how to protect it. University Beat's Hedel Gandhi explains.
Bienvenido a Havana.
It was an exciting trip.
A warm welcome for USF as this team arrives for its first visit to the island.
You have an opportunity in Cuba to bring the knowledge and experience we've had to people who are in a very precarious position right now. You're talking about a little fragile island that is potentially the ability to now change its whole infrastructure ecosystem with an influx of people, businesses, et cetera, that it's not prepared for.
Carnival Cruise Lines has just recently started tours to Cuba with 750 passenger cruise ships. Those small, bigger ones and more will come. The Obama administration has now said that commercial flights are coming online, so people won't have to go only by charter. So they're going to have to manage large numbers of people, which they're not used to doing, and they don't have the infrastructure set up for.
Dr. David Randall is the Director of Sustainable Tourism at USF's Patel College for Global Sustainability.
If we want to maintain the good quality of oceans between the United States and Cuba with their marine protected areas and our Florida Keys Sanctuary, for example, there's a real overlap there. So the issues of what happens in Cuba do affect the United States.
USF hopes to create an internship program with the University of Havana's College of Marine Science. They're also working with the Ministry of Tourism and other local agencies that will deal with the influx of travel to the island.
We met with Hemingway Marina, the Commodore Esrich, of how we can maybe do partnerships on clean marinas and port sustainability.
In addition to the precious coral reefs and marine life, Cubans also want to protect their way of life.
They understand that they have something very special in their lifestyle, their value on family, they're concerned about each other, they're concerned about the culture that they want to protect.
Richard Berman, the interim director for the Patel College of Global Sustainability, says Florida has great examples of making tourism eco-friendly.
Well, I think the best example we have, and it's really a Florida-based example, is Disney. And you look at Disney's 12 principles of doing business and making the planet better and being very successful.
The trip also shed light on what Cuba is doing right.
Despite the challenges, Cuba has a lot of things going for it. For one, we were surprised at how good the roads are. The roads are in many ways better than our roads in Tampa in terms of potholes and traffic flows. And it's the cleanest city of 2 million people I've ever been to.
And Dr. Randall says from the scenic pedestrian seawalk to the inner winding roads of the city, Cubans are living a more active lifestyle than he ever imagined.
Encouraging people to get around with walking and bikes or using the bicycle taxis and et cetera was really, I think, an asset that other destinations around the world can learn from.
There were a few challenges on the trip, including language barriers and limited internet access. But overall, the group says its mission was a huge success.
This was my first trip to Cuba, and it was an eye-opener because a lot of the myths and impressions I had really got blown away.
We had been warned that sometimes people may feel too guarded and not wanted to say things, particularly to Americans. We did not find that to be the case with anybody. They were quite open and honest about both their challenges and problems, as well as what their needs are and what they would like to see for the future.
A future that includes this USF team returning to Cuba again in the fall, and hopefully for many years to come.
I hope they'll say USF played a pivotal role in steering some aspects of tourism in Cuba to be more sustainable and on the right track, and that people coming today are having a better experience as a result of that effort that started a decade before.
For University Beat, I'm Hedel Gandhi.
Most of us in this part of Florida would never describe ourselves as jugglers, but whether we realize it, that's what we're doing. We're juggling the things that make Florida, Florida. The water, the wetlands, the beauty, with the things that help drive our economy, growth, tourism, development. It's a balancing act that's not often simple or easy. Dr. Mark Raines is with the USF Geosciences Department, and he studies the impact our water use policies and decisions have on our ecosystems. And Dr. Raines, welcome to University Beat.
Thank you for having me.
We are seeing so much growth in Florida. Of course, it's more growth year after year after year. How are we doing when it comes to balancing growth with our water resources?
We're certainly doing better than we had in the past. I mean, in the past, we'd had sort of growth overtaking our ability to provide water while also providing sufficient protections for the environment. We're doing much better than we used to. The water users and the water regulators work more collaboratively today to try to balance those water resources. I don't think anyone's ready to say we've solved the problem, but we are working together to solve the problem.
So from your research and your perspective, what are the most important things when it comes to balancing growth and water resources? What is it that you look for to make sure that we're on the right track?
Well, there are human and natural water users, okay? And you could imagine the water resources as a pie. And when we make decisions, we decide how we want to slice that pie. The pie doesn't get any bigger. It stays the same size. And so, if we cut out a slice of pie and we provide that as water to human users, that's a slice of the pie that's no longer available to the environment. The key is it's kind of hard to tell how much the environment needs because their needs vary seasonally. There's variations annually because there's wet years and dry years. The climate isn't stationary, it's changing. Sometimes we go through long wet cycles and long dry cycles. And then of course the demand is always increasing from the human environment, right? So it's sort of this dynamic balancing act as you figure out how much you can take while still preserving some for the environment.
What's the potential danger for us if we don't manage demand adequately?
Well, there's a whole lot of potential consequences. The one that really drove a lot of the battles that we've had in recent years really is environmental, because there's sort of a geologic anomaly. There's a clay layer that caps the Florida aquifer. Beneath our feet, we'd go through some sand, we'd hit that clay layer, then we'd hit the Florida aquifer. If we pump water out of the Florida aquifer here, that clay layer sort of limits the effect that pumping might have on the surface water. To the north, that clay layer has disappeared. It was eroded when sea levels were lower, which means that we go straight from the Florida aquifer right into the sand and right into the surface environments. That's where most of our wells are located, which means when we pump the Florida aquifer up there, we are taking water largely directly also out of the surface environments. So lakes can go dry, springs can go dry, wetlands can go dry. And so there's this really a strong connection between how we use that aquifer and the effects it might have on the natural environment. And quite frankly, that's the natural environment that creates the quality of life that we have here in Florida.
What's your view of desalination and using that to increase our drinking water supply?
I'll say a couple things. One is expensive, right? It costs more to produce desalinized water than it does to produce groundwater, and it costs more to produce groundwater than it does to produce surface water. Okay, so there's a cost element to it. There's also an energy cost. Pretty easy to get water out of a surface water source. You've got to pump it out of a groundwater source. You got to spend a lot of energy in order to do desalination.
What is it that keeps you up at night?
What keeps me awake at night is that we live in a non-stationary world. The climate is changing, and we have a lot of knowledge that it is, but not great knowledge about the direction and magnitude of some of the changes that might manifest themselves in our water resources.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A member of the USF faculty was honored as a community hero this spring by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Mary Lynn Morris was cited for her work in opening the world of dance to people with disabilities. Morris received $50,000 from the Lightning. She plans to donate the money to organizations that promote her cause. Here, in her own words, Morris explains her motivation.
When I was 12, my father was in a severe car accident. Two 18-year-old kids crossed the center line and hit him head-on here in Tampa when Waters Avenue was a two-lane highway. And it was a very severe head-on collision. He was in a coma for about a month, and the doctors didn't expect him to survive. It was the caregiving experience and the experience of kind of being involved with disability directly, plus my work with dancers with and without disabilities here in Tampa, that kind of fueled this kind of way of looking at assistive mobility devices that was new and kind of a new approach that would consider, you know, how is a person really interacting with the person in the wheelchair? Are there other options that can be enabled? Traditionally, wheelchairs and mobility devices haven't really been thought of from a dance perspective. They haven't really been thought of from a creative perspective. They've been mainly thought of from a very functional and safety perspective. You know, just you know, sort of very again utility oriented. So my approach was very different and sort of more this creative and this kind of embodied approach where you're thinking about, well, you know, how does the device really, you know, how does the device become dynamic? You know, it needs to be a dynamic interface, right? It needs to be responsive, not just this kind of static thing that kind of like supports somebody, but like how does it sort of in some ways become alive? Artistic pursuits, whether they be writing, drawing, theater, dance, whatever it might be, are really kind of inherent inclinations for people. You see it in children, you know, and that I think we often lose sight of the fact that these are actually inherent things. You know, people when they hear music often want to move. People are very much, I mean, children especially, you know, if you watch the range of movement that they typically have, it's incredible. Like the children I work with in Revolutions Dance have disabilities. They especially are trying to navigate their identities through this different sort of body that maybe, you know, a lot of their friends don't have, you know. And so I think for them to gain confidence and a sense of empowerment in how they're using their body and looking beautiful and looking just, you know, having a sense of control with their body is significant. It's creative and it's about finding what can they do. These students are empowered in the sense, the way at least that we've structured the classroom is it's not about fitting into, again, here's society's rule, you know, and you have to fit in, but it's they're allowed to be who they are, very much in their bodies, while also meeting the expectations of dance, you know, as an art form. Always rescuing homeless people. You know, my mom always collected all the stray dogs in the neighborhood and all this kind of thing. So that's how my parents were. I probably genetically inherited the desire to contribute, you know, and to pay attention to what's going on in the world, and you know, try to use your skills and talents in ways that can benefit other people. Yeah, I always think about him, you know, smiling out there somewhere at this event. I think he would be thrilled. Yeah.
If there's a story about the University of South Florida you'd like to see us cover, please let us know. Our email is ubeat@wusf.org. Our website is universitybeattv.org. And we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us by searching University Beat TV. And that's this edition of University Beat. I'm Denise White. Thank you so much for joining us.